Share. Hi, guys. I did tell the congressman that this is just a normal meeting because you guys never stop showing up and you never stop doing the work. So thank you for being the hardest working county in the state. Sorry?
I just said thank you.
In fact, you guys got me elected to the DNC. So anyway, it's my privilege to introduce to you our next gubernatorial candidate, David Jolly, and I'm going to give you a little bit of his bio, because it does matter. He grew up in Florida, the son of a pastor. Today, David and his wife, Laura, are raising their young family in Pinellas County, where he served in Congress from 2014 to 2017. In Congress, David focused on helping veterans and seniors, supporting law enforcement, protecting the environment, and bringing resources back to Florida. David's work to clean up government corruption was featured on 60 Minutes. I've never been on 60 Minutes, I think that's cool. David became nationally known for his independent streak, and that's why I'm reading this, because these are things that I think people don't necessarily know. Leading the Tampa Bay Times to write, "It's refreshing to hear someone take on the system." One Washington Post columnist famously penned, "Jolly speaks the truth." And upon leaving Congress, another columnist wrote, "Farewell to the one congressman willing to compromise." I don't think on values. David has spent the last 8 years as a political analyst on MSNBC. His work has been featured in Time, USA Today, Roll Call, blah, blah, blah. He received a bachelor's degree from Emory and a Juris Doctorate cum laude from George Mason. And I'd like to now introduce to you gubernatorial candidate David Jolly.
Thank you all very much. Listen, everywhere I've gone, people have said, you got to get to know the Brevard Democrats. And so it's thrilling to be with you all this evening, but I also want to say thank you to a few others. You don't have to raise your hand. I want to say thank you to the independents and Republicans who have snuck in tonight. We need you. We need you. We need you. Look, mine is a story of change. My entire political journey has been a story of change. I talk about change. I celebrate change. Whatever's on your voter registration card tonight, I promise you, we have something in common. So thank you for the opportunity to spend this evening with you. I want to do a couple things. I want to provide a little bit more of an introduction to myself. I also want to share with you the values of this campaign, the values that are rooted in Democratic Party tradition. Rooted in Democratic Party tradition, but values that are so much bigger than our party and can lead us to victory in November. Because the last thing I'm going to share with you is how we win. Because as Democrats, we're going to win in November. We're going to win in November. I promise you we're going to win this thing in November, all of us. Not the Jolly campaign, Democrats writ large, across the state, across the country. We're going to win races this November. So let me start with a little bit more of an introduction. As Pam said, my wife and I live over in Pinellas County, where I was born. I lived all over the state, though. Grew up in South Florida, in Miami-Dade, for about 10 or 12 years. Moved to Pasco County, where I graduated from Pasco High, and I've lived in Pensacola. I've lived to somebody from Pasco. Right? Hey, here we go.
Yep, Land O'Lakes.
Land O'Lakes. I lived all over the state. I'm a fifth-generation Floridian, but as I say, it doesn't make me a lick better than someone who moved here yesterday. I was in Congress from Pinellas County, and I was a Republican during those years. I apologize for that time. I also have had the opportunity to practice law, to be in finance, and yes, TV as well. For those of you who have been regular viewers of MSNBC, thank you for being a part of that family. The last thing I do, and please give me some grace here and hold on, I talk openly about my faith, and I do it for a few reasons. It's just part of who I am. I'm not asking anyone to share it, but if I'm making the introduction, sure. My wife and I live in Pinellas. I had the opportunity to be in Congress. I was a lawyer. Yes, I speak openly about my faith, but I do it for this other reason at this moment in Florida politics. I think it's okay to have candidates speak about their faith so long as they pronounce as their part of their candidacy that we need a governor in the state of Florida that 8 years ago launched culture wars in the name of faith to recognize that their personal and private faith stops at the steps to the State House. That is what the Constitution has ordained. That is what the Constitution requires. And for people of all faiths, whatever that faith might be, it doesn't weaken our faith to recognize that limitation. It strengthens our faith. But I would also say when we use that approach, we also get to recognize and build affinity with those who identify as atheists and agnostics, who on most days are far more charitable than those of us who sit in church pews on Sunday mornings. Because whether your foundations are rooted in faith or what Thomas Jefferson declared as the natural rights of man, there are basic values that we all share. Basic values that we all share. Values that are rooted in the American experiment, but values that I believe are rooted today in the Democratic Party. Values that have gotten away from us. And so I do want to talk about those values tonight. The last thing I'll share with you, though, as part of the introduction, because I skipped over this, I shouldn't have. My wife and I have a 6-year-old and 4-year-old. Yeah, right? I'm 53, folks. I'm 53. And they're 6 and 4, and every day's a Monday in our house. Every day's a Monday in our house. But as someone who's lived all over the state, who's a 5th-generation Floridian, I will also give you this admission. My wife and I often ask ourselves whether we should raise our kids in the state of Florida. Whether we should raise our kids in the state of Florida. That is our lived experience. You don't have to have kids or grandkids to be facing those same questions. We are a state tonight that is gripped by 2 major crises. We are a state gripped by an economic crisis, not just an affordability crisis, an economic crisis. Affordability is whether or not you can pay your rent next month. An economic crisis is whether you feel comfortable knowing you'll have housing for the next 10 years. We have an economic crisis in the state we'll talk about, but we're also a state that is exhausted by culture wars. Exhausted by culture wars. And what my friends in Tallahassee on the Republican side have always failed to recognize is that culture wars have victims. Culture wars have victims. We are a state that has gone in the wrong direction, and now the economy is out of reach for too many people, and we're a state where people don't feel welcome. How do we build the next chapter of Florida tonight? I do think there are 3 values. Values that I tried to exercise as a Republican, as an independent, but values that I see rooted in Democratic Party tradition, and why today I'm a proud Florida Democrat, not a reluctant Democrat. Yeah. Because there are 3 values. And listen, we'll talk to you in the Q&A. Change is part of my story. We were talking upstairs about this. Change is part of my story. It's a journey. And I test the question in politics. Is it okay to change your mind? Is it okay to grow? Is it okay to evolve? I think it is. I don't think the problem in politics are people who change. I think it's people who won't change. And so I'm proud of my journey of change. But the values that I've always tried to represent and amplify and fight for are very simple. First, the economy should work for everybody. The economy should work for everybody. Now, I will tell you, I don't think we should condemn the haves just to fight for the have-nots. We can congratulate success. We have a capitalist economy since World War II where we've made responsible social investments in education and healthcare and upward mobility, retirement security, home ownership. And we have done that to allow people of all walks of life to find success. Congratulations. But tonight, the economy is not working for everybody. Half of this state doesn't have enough savings to last 2 weeks. Access to health care has gone away for too many people. The idea of home ownership has expired for too many people. We have people getting kicked out of their homes because they can't afford homeowners insurance, and their rents are so high they're pulling their kids out of school and jumping rents month to month. The economy is not working for everyone, and it should. So we should fight for an economy that works for everyone. The second value is that government can improve our lives. Government can improve our lives. Look, in an era of Doge, I realize that might be unpopular, sounds a little bit like Bill Clinton in 1992. We should talk about private sector solutions. We should make sure government's lean and efficient and held accountable. But the truth is there are certain things in society that only government will provide because the incentive structure isn't there for private sector solutions. What do I mean? Investments in public education. Public education. Access to health care. Amen. Whatever is on your insurance card tonight, I promise you government's been a part of it. And if you don't have an insurance card tonight, government needs to be a part of that solution to make sure you have access to health care. Access to home ownership, to affordable rents, affordable and workforce housing, a homeowner's insurance plan and platform that actually works in the state of Florida. See, there are certain things that government can do. So the economy should work for everyone. Government can improve your lives. And the last value that is so deeply rooted in Democratic Party tradition, from FDR to JFK to Obama and so many other Democratic leaders, is we are a party, but we should be a state and a nation that recognizes that absolutely everybody's rights are protected and their dignity should be celebrated. Their dignity should be celebrated. Regardless regardless of the color of your skin, where you were born, who you love, or who you worship. And listen, I talk about celebrating dignity for a very specific reason. You see, protecting people's rights, we have a roadmap for that. The Constitution tells us what to do. We don't always get it right. The courts sometimes fail us. But when we talk about celebrating everyone's dignity, that requires voices of leadership and voices in communities that recognize the dignity of everybody, the celebration of everybody, that we should be a state where regardless of your walk of life, you're welcome. We want you to live here. We want you to visit here. That is not something that this state could suggest it has gotten right in the last decade. So yes, the economy should work for everyone. Government can improve our lives, and everybody's rights should be protected and their dignity celebrated. What does that look like in policy? I'll give you just a couple quick policy points, and then I want to jump to how we're going to win this thing. I won't belabor you too deeply with policy, but just follow me on this. The economic crisis right now is presenting largely in three major areas: housing and home ownership, or the ability to stay in one's apartment, or affordable rents. Access to health care, and yes, education is now part of an economic crisis in a state that has abandoned funding of public education and created a school choice program where schools are charging tuition on top of vouchers. So yes, the economic crisis is presenting itself in housing, health care, and education. Very quickly, for homeowners, I think we need a state catastrophic fund for homeowners insurance. It'll cut your homeowners insurance by 60 to 70%. We are a state that has denied climate science and climate change for too long. There is not an affordable way to cover hurricanes and natural disasters. There is a market-based way to do it, but that market-based way is unaffordable for too many of Florida's families. And when it becomes unaffordable, the calling of responsible public policy is to figure out a solution backed by government. I think we need a state sovereign wealth fund to fully remove hurricane coverage from the private market and cut homeowners insurance by 60 to 70%. My friends on the right call it socialism. Yeah, I just call it cheaper insurance, folks. It's just cheaper insurance. And it is a model for the Western world. I will also tell you, when it comes to home ownership, we should have utility reform in the state of Florida. No longer approving the highest rates in American history. In American history, which this state has done, I think we should cap utility rates at the national average. Now, before people say that's price controls, no, we already have it. We already have it. We already have it. The Public Service Commission currently has to approve the current rate of profit for our utilities. The problem is we have the dirtiest, most corrupt campaign finance system in the entire world right here in the state of Florida, and their utilities get whatever they want. So I think instead of giving them 2, 3, 4 points above the national average, let's cap rates in Florida at the national average. It's still almost a 10% pay raise, profit margin for our utilities. I do think we need more investments in workforce and affordable housing. We have platforms and formulas that currently work. We have 40-year tax agreements with developers in return for them creating units in certain geographies for certain income brackets, certain trades, or proximity to work. What's been working in the past, let's scale it up. And let's make sure that families and individuals who need access to affordable and workforce housing, they have it. Because budgets are just values. And this is a value we have abandoned in the state of Florida. We are a state that is becoming a state for the rich and the reckless, and I want it to be a state for everybody. And that means the ability to have home ownership, to aspire to home ownership, to stay in your home, or to make sure you can stay in your apartment. I worry about the economy in the next 20 years of the state of Florida. If we don't do something about it, it's going to slip away from us. It really is. Listen, I think we need property tax relief for homeowners. Now, I've been a Republican in Congress, and Republican math never works out. It doesn't. John Boehner used to say, don't worry, it'll work out in 30 or 40 years. It never did. Look, I don't think the math in Tallahassee is going to work out for a property tax repeal. I think what they're planning to do is make municipalities wards of the state. If you're a blue community, they're going to withhold funding. If you're a red community, they'll make sure you have some. But it's not enough for us as Democrats in the midst of an economic crisis to just say no, no, no. We should be responsible and sober and see where there are opportunities for relief. I'll give you 2 examples. Right now, we need property tax relief, generational property tax relief for first-time home buyers. Many in this room benefit from Save Our Homes and portability. I do. It was good public policy. We started about 25 years ago, so long-time home buyers didn't get priced out of their home based on rising taxable values. We should keep it. But 25 years later, the imbalance is so great that that first-time home buyer, their property tax bill jumps by 300 or 400%. There's a reason the average age of first-time home buyers is now 40, 41, 42 years old. I also think if we can make the math work for our municipalities and not defund services like Republicans are proposing, one of the most progressive things we could do right now would be an additional $100,000 homestead exemption. Think about it. If you have a $200,000 home right now, an additional $100,000 basically repeals and absolves any of your property tax burden. If you have a $2 million home, maybe it's a little bit of a benefit, but it's not much. It actually becomes property tax relief for those in most need right now. Let's think as Democrats about how we address the needs of people in this moment and not just say no to what Republicans are offering. We'll get there with property tax relief if we take a smart, sensible approach to it. Healthcare, very quickly. We should be a state that expands Medicaid. Yeah. We should be a state that expands Medicaid. We are one of only 10 states that hasn't. And 15 years later, we know not only does it improve the qualitative outcomes for beneficiaries, but it's an economic return to the state. It saves us money when we do that. The only reason Florida hasn't expanded Medicaid is because it was the idea of a guy named Barack Obama. Right. And Tallahassee Republicans are too busy litigating his legacy than delivering health care to Florida's families. We should be a state that expands Medicaid. But I'll tell you, after doing nearly 200 town halls like this across the state, I'm doing what Lawton Childs did. I'm just driving, not walking. But we've done these from the Alabama border down to Key West and everywhere in between. I think we should always look to the private sector first. I think government should be lean. But I also will tell you this, we have a healthcare crisis that is not going to get solved without government intervention right now. And while Washington dickers with the insurance-driven platforms that are never going to create affordable care for us again, I think we need to jump in as a state and directly fund the delivery of primary healthcare services in all 67 counties right now, regardless of the ability to pay. Regardless of the ability to pay. And for folks who say, no, that's Mandami-like talk. No, it's not, folks. We already fund federally qualified community health centers across the state that are doing this. We just don't fund them enough. Let's create more access points for more families that maybe would pilot it for 5 years in those areas with the greatest need. But we have families right now going without health care. It is a moral wrong and it's driving up costs to the state. So whether you want to lead with your heart and say let's do this or lead with your head, let's just do it. Let's just get to the delivery of health care services across the state of Florida. Very quickly on education. Folks, we are a state that has abandoned public education in the last 20 years. Yes. Our teachers are paid dead last in the nation tonight. Dead last! Yep. And it's a moral wrong. Yes. I don't care what's on your voter registration card. We're the third largest state in the nation with a bursting economy. We pay our teachers dead last in the nation. It is wrong. We have some beautiful schools, but we have some failing schools. We need a 10-year renaissance in public education in the state of Florida. And I don't hide from revenue conversations, folks. Look, we have three main economic drivers in Florida: tourism, agriculture, and construction. Right now, we have tourist development dollars coming into our state every single day, and as a state, we require those dollars to be spent on more tourism, on building convention centers, on advertising our convention centers. It makes good intuitive sense and it's great and we should continue to do it. But folks, we don't have a crisis of convention centers. We have a crisis in public education. And I think if we ask Florida voters, will you approve a ballot initiative that for the next 10 years we take 10% of our tourist development tax dollars and we put it in public education? Florida's voters will approve it. Let's give teachers a 30% pay raise, not a 3% pay raise. Move us into the top half of the nation. Where we have failing infrastructure, let's improve it. Because guess what? Some of our facilities right now are still 80-year-old facilities with failing classrooms and portables and trailers in the back with leaky window air conditioned units. A playground is a dusty field under an oak tree. And a state with universal choice, Florida's families are not going to choose that environment. So let's have a 10-year renaissance in public education. Make Florida, decide to make Florida the leading public education state in the entire country. Invest in our teachers, invest in our platforms, whether it's infrastructure or virtual learning or platforms for the future. Let's commit to doing that. And then I'll tell you this on our choice program. I'm not a candidate who says tonight, let's shut down choice. It's very popular. But you know what? I'm looking around the room. There are not a lot of parents here with first graders. Some of you are. Some of you have grandkids with first graders. Let me tell you a real story tonight, just so we all leave here with an important lesson about choice education in the state of Florida right now. A choice school in the state of Florida does not have to teach your kid to read.
That's disgusting.
That sounds crazy, right? True story is happening all across the state right now. A first grade kid who can't read, the choice school gets to kick them out. Send them back to public school and they get to say, send us a kid who can read. Because they're not required to provide an individual education program, special services. If your child wants access to excellence in academics, trigonometry in 10th grade, they don't have to do it. Access to the trades and the arts, they don't have to do it. You see, they don't have to provide any of the same services and standards. So yes, let's have a 10-year renaissance in public education. Let public education outcompete our choice schools. And then we say to the choice schools, if you're going to take a voucher, you're going to provide the same services and standards and offerings that our public schools do. You're going to be measured by the same measuring stick. If it's good enough for public schools, it's good enough for private. How do we win? Well, let me get to the last thing on protecting people's rights and celebrating their dignity, because I just want to lean into this a little bit. It should be heartbreaking where the state has gone in the last 10 years. We have launched culture wars that have insulted and marginalized already marginalized communities. And for people who wrap themselves in the teachings of faith, it's an abomination to their faith that they do it. An abomination to their faith that they do it. Whatever that faith teaching is, whether it's the Jefferson's Natural Rights of Man, the fact is, the book that I believe in says at the end of our days, we're all going to gather around the same throne, people of all colors and creeds and languages and nationalities and orientations. And so yes, we should be a state that lifts up everybody and returns dignity to everybody, which means the first day of a new Democratic governor in Florida, the culture wars are over. The culture wars are over. Let teachers teach. Bring back the books. Teach all of history. All of history. If a local community wants to paint a mural to honor our LGBTQ plus community or Black Lives Matter, God bless you, I'll buy the can of paint. And guess what? In this era where we're debating culture wars, I get to make an old school Republican argument to my former colleagues, because I still believe in the principle that I signed up for. Keep government out of your doctor's office and out of your bedroom and out of your life. That means love who you want to love, marry who you want to marry. A woman should have her own bodily autonomy and reproductive freedom. And for our trans community, those decisions are between who you love and your doctor. God bless you. Listen, we need to be a state that finally ends culture wars. I don't often think about what happens when we win this race. In politics, you got to focus on winning the day, winning the week, winning the month. But I think we're going to win this race. I think as Democrats, we are going to win this race. And there's something I thought about driving across Alligator Alley one night pretty late. I thought, what's the ethos? What's the ethos of this? What am I trying to get to in this race? And I pictured something that I want to be able to do on election night. I want to be able to stand up and say to the world that on behalf of the state that 10 years ago launched culture wars, we apologize. We apologize. Everyone is welcome in the state of Florida. Again, we want your kids and grandkids to call it home. We want your snowbird friends to visit because we are a state, once again, where everybody's welcome. How we win, I'm going to do this very quickly so we have enough time for any last Q&A. I want to point out something I didn't do in the last 15 minutes. I didn't mention the President of the United States. Listen, a lot of people say thank you. Others say, wait a minute, I brought my no king sign. Listen, I'm not asking anyone to lay down their convictions about the President or the direction of the nation. In 2015, as a Republican, I was the only Republican member of Congress in that cycle to call on the President to drop out of the race. I never supported him. I lost my job and I lost my party and I left my party over it. I have made my convictions clear. But this race, the way we win this race, think about it. This is an open seat governorship about the future of Florida. We're going to have Senate races and congressional races to litigate the president and the direction of the nation. This race is about what Bob Graham and Lawton Childs used to talk about, the responsible administration of government. Are we educating your kids? Do we have clean air and clean water? Do you have access to health care and home ownership? That's what this race is about. And along the way, are we protecting your voting rights and making sure everybody can love who they want to love and live how they want to live? That's what this race is about. And here's the good news about how we win. When we each do what's within reach in this environment where voters across the state and across the country are screaming for change, where they have already started to outperform for Democratic candidates by 15 and 20 points in our congressional races, where we just won the city of Miami mayorship for the first time in 30 years. And it wasn't even close, it was 19 points. Folks, we're gaining ground in the villages. The villages. check your voter registration, your vote by mail, when you canvass, when you call, when you knock on your neighbor's door, when you show up at meetings like this, and when we all commit to moving forward together. You know, the question I always get about Democrats, are we going left or right? I say we're going forward. We're going forward as Democrats. When we build a coalition in the midst of an economic crisis in a state that's exhausted by culture wars and say we want to make sure you have access to housing and to health care and public education and your kids want to live here and your friends want to visit, when we focus in on that, we're going to win this race in November, folks. We're going to win this race. I'll close with this. I mentioned my 2 kids, 6 and 4. I'm amazed every day at my age that I've just still been stumped by the fact that 2 kids can come from the same womb and be so different. Our 6-year-old daughter, Cece, is going to be just fine in life. She might be governor before I am. Our 4-year-old Teddy's already told my wife he's never leaving home. She thinks it's a great idea. 2 weeks ago, he said he wants to be a stay-at-home dad in our home and have my wife help raise his children. Whoever he finds as his life partner, God bless them, boy. But our 6-year-old daughter one night, she doesn't want me to run for governor, folks. I'm just being honest with you. Some of you have heard this story. I'm getting through it tonight without getting choked up. She doesn't want me to run for governor. She wants a dad to be home reading stories to her tonight. That's what she wants, right? But she was telling me this story when I started crying. She said, Dad, please don't do this. Don't do this. And something that I saw in her eyes and I've heard in her voice every day since. Kids today look at our politics and see it as vile and mean and nasty and ugly and divisive, and they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want anything to do with it. When I was her age, I was looking at the Carter-Reagan election aspirationally. I didn't know what to think about it, but I saw it as this great American experiment, this civic exercise. I was proud of it, even if I didn't know what it was. 6-year-old children today say, no, don't do politics. The second thing that happened is the words that came to me, and I believe just in providence, the words that were laid on my heart that night. I said, sweetheart, when you have a chance to change the world, you take it. You take it. Listen, folks, this is that moment. Don't second guess ourselves as Democrats. We are winning in places we've never won before. This is the best opportunity we've had in 30 years. We know in our hearts that change is here. We know that independents and Republicans are willing to give us a shot this cycle. And so our job is to create a coalition big enough for our independent and Republican friends to join us to win. And so this is the moment where we have a shot to do this. And I was sharing upstairs something I will tell you. On election night, 30 Rock, Fox News, CNN, whatever it is, when we win the Florida governorship, all of us, not David Jolly, when we win in Florida, the story's not going to be that this guy Jolly just got elected governor. The story's going to be that Florida's voters for the first time in 30 years have built a political coalition that this country hasn't seen, that this state hasn't seen, in the deep red state of Florida, where the president lives and Ron DeSantis has had a tighter grip on politics than any governor we've seen, that our coalition, our party, built a political coalition fighting for an economy that works for everyone. Government improving our lives in a place where everybody's rights are protected and their dignity celebrated. And when we do that, you get to say to your kids and grandkids, and I get to say to my daughter, Cece, sweetheart, we just changed the world. Thank you all very much. Thank you all. Madam Chair, I took a lot of time.
We have time for a few questions if anyone has a burning question. We're going to go with this young man with his hat waving in the air there.
As governor, we changed the policy of the crosswalk controversy that was about Pulse. I visited Pulse. I was over there right after it happened. And my envision is for you to have a big ceremony after you reverse this nonsense and have the survivors and the victims' families paint an actual pride flag at the Pulse crosswalk there. Would you promise us that you will do that? Reverse this nonsense.
God bless you. Let's do it. I'll buy the paint. I'll grab a paintbrush and let's do it together. We need a Project 2027 in this state to reset a lot that's been done. Some of that's going to be legislative, some of that's going to be constitutional. We're going to test some things, but some of it is going to be more than symbolic. That is very substantive when we do that. But we're going to do some things that this state hasn't seen coming. We're going to paint crosswalks together. We're going to fire the Surgeon General of the state of Florida. We're going to name a new education commissioner. We're going to return the state university system to people who understand institutional autonomy and excellence. There's a lot we get to do on day one. The last thing I'll tell you we get to do on day one is we get to close Alligator Alcatraz on So let's start with a ceremony outside Colts nightclub. What's that? Yeah.
We'll buy the faith. Andre.
As governor, what will you do to roll back the recently allocated funds to fund genocide, taxpayer funds to fund genocide? And also, will you refuse to accept AIPAC money?
So the first part of your question, let's be very clear. Are you talking about the state investment portfolio? So look, I will leave the decision on state investments to the stewardship of the CFO, which I think is where the responsible decision lies. Here's what I will tell you on my relationship with the interest in Israel, with AIPAC and others. I'm happy to answer those questions this evening. I think Israel, but more importantly, America and the West, failed in our leadership to bring the war to a close much, much, much sooner. I say that as someone who was and still considers myself an ally of the Israel people, if not the Prime Minister. I do believe, given my work in Congress in the national security space, that the freedom of Israel and our partnership with Israel is of strong national security interest to us as the United States. I have said this very respectfully. I don't think AIPAC actually gives money in state races, but out of respect for the current debate within the party, I don't think we need to accept AIPAC money as candidates right now. But I want to be very honest. I don't want to play cute by this. My alliance and my allegiance with Israel will remain strong. And I certainly expect and probably have already received donations from people who are strong allies of Israel as well. I'm not going to reject that. I think it is critical to our national security. I would also open this up to a much broader campaign finance conversation. I think we need public financing of campaigns. I think we have the most corrupt campaign finance system in the world as part of what I tried to take on in Washington. And I think as governor, I would like to ban the unlimited political committees that launder special interest money throughout our country.
One more question. I'm going to go to Dan Cicerelli since he's had his hand up.
Do you have any advice for somebody who's thinking about running for State House?
Run. No. Listen, and we'll end with this, but I really mean this. Look, all across the state tonight, when I go in rooms and people say, hey, I'm a Democrat and I'm thinking about running for, I say, put your name on the ballot. Do it this cycle, do it. Now, we can talk afterwards about some of the mechanics of, door knocking versus digital and fundraising and all those important things. I promise you, though, and I love this question. For those of you who watch MSNBC, there's a guy named John Heilman who's a good friend of mine. And he says, stop being an analyst and start being a candidate. I'm going to play analyst for a little bit here. This is the best opportunity Democrats have had, I think, probably since 1974. I think we're jumping past 08. We're jumping past 18. I've thought it's the inverse of the 94 Republican Revolution. I think we're in 1974 territory. Now listen, things could change. We got 6 or 7 months right now. But the president's numbers are so low. No president from this point till November has gone up by more than a point, and the average is they go down by 0.3. We have seen numbers within our Hispanic community, certainly not monolithic, that are swinging by 30 points. By 30 points, we're well into pre-2016 levels. The independents that just in November of 24 were voting 2-1 for Republicans are voting 3-1 for Democrats right now. Folks, the red wall in Sarasota County is collapsing for Republicans right now. Collapsing. There are no more independents. They're voting for Democrats right now. And so if you're considering a run for office, or you're considering whether to spend time knocking on doors and canvassing, this is what I was saying earlier. We have to do what's within reach, all of us in this moment. Because I will tell you, this is more than just politics and Democratic whims right now. We know the nation is breaking apart. We know it. We see it in the streets of Minneapolis. We see it in the memes the president is sending out. You hear it from your kids and grandkids who say, I don't want to live in Florida. The young LGBT youth who says, I'm leaving the country. The person who says, I'm having to give up my home, or I just went without health care. I removed my kids from the only pediatrician they've known. Homeowners insurance is now out of reach. In Pensacola, families who are jumping rents, taking their kids out of school, where we're seeing truancy rates we haven't seen before because they have to worry first about a home over their head than they do where their kids go to a classroom. Folks, we know that the state and the country is falling apart. The reason Democrats have an opportunity is because independents and Republicans are saying to us, if you just ask me to litigate the simple question of who we are as a people, if you just ask me to litigate whether or not together we can believe in better, believe in better, believe in something better. Believe that we're better than who we are right now in this moment. Whether you're a Democrat running for school board, a Democrat running for governor, for county commission, for state house, whatever it might be, put your name out there. If you're going to volunteer, do it, folks. Yes, Democrats are going to have a fantastic night at this rate in November, but more importantly, the state's going to have a great night and the country's going to have a great night, because well, we returned us to a place where we know we are better than we are tonight. Thank you all very much for your time.